are worthy, and no one can worship you for me. For all the things you've done for me, and no one can worship you for me. Lift it up. Here's my worship, all of my worship. Receive my worship, all of my worship. Here's my worship, all of my worship. Father, receive my worship, all of my worship. You are worthy, and no one can worship you for me. For all the things you've done for me, There's an outpouring of abundance, of abundance.
Good evening, and welcome again to the second installment of our discussion on mental health. Minister Audrey Corey, I introduced her last week, did a phenomenal job, in my view, on the subject. She is the face of a partnership with Elder Emily Cumberbatch, and the two of them both did their masters in different areas at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica, and they both had the privilege of not only being involved in the hospital system but in public health, and they were both trained in Israel. So they have almost, between the two of them, almost 50 years, 100 years rather, experience in the medical field. I know you will be blessed tonight. I know you will be ministered unto, and so I want to invite you to sit back and let's see how, in the midst of all of these challenges, benefit from this teaching on mental health. God bless you.
Last week, when we talked, we dealt with mental health and health, the definition of both, and we said they were so closely related that we could easily say there is no health without mental health. Remember that slogan we used? So we're going to look again at some of these issues with regard to stress. We did mention stress last week. So we want to talk about a little bit about stress, and then we'll go on to some other matters with regard to mental health. Now, what is stress? If I can give you a simple definition, it's just a feeling of emotion or physical tension. A feeling of emotional or physical tension can come from any event or thought that makes you feel like frustrated or angry or nervous or any of those things. It's your own body's reaction to a challenge or a demand. So this is what stress is. You know, you recall I said last week, a stressor is anything, event or condition in your environment, in your surroundings that causes this stress. Something that you would have heard or seen or felt that would cause you to react in a certain way, cause you to become emotionally tense or physically tense and all that. So this is what stress is. What stress is not such a bad thing in itself, because you can have positive stress. Right? So what is positive stress? How do you know this stress is positive? Positive stress causes just a brief increase in your heart rate, mild elevation maybe in your stress hormone levels. So it's things like, well, you're going to write an exam. So you feel a little bit tense. Okay, so that is some amount of stress that you feel. You're going to do a public lecture, like what I'm doing here now, and you feel a little tense, you feel a little uneasy, you feel a little anxious, okay? But what you're doing is actually preparing for this event, and you want it to turn out to be the best that it can be. So, of course, you're thinking of all the things you should do to make it, even better than you think it is right now. So it's sort of positive in that way. All right? Or if you probably got into some kind of situation where you narrowly avoided some kind of danger, you feel a certain amount of stress in that event. And you know that's positive because you came out of it quite safe. So that's what you call positive stress. Now there's also tolerable stress. That's a little more tension than you feel in the positive stress. All right, this one activates your body to a greater degree as a result of that, whatever happened. And it is a little more severe than the positive stress. It's a little longer lasting. All right? So you can look at maybe something like the loss of a loved one. That causes stress. And that does not go away as quickly as the one that we talked about in the terms of the positive stress, in terms of writing an exam or having some kind of thing to do that causes you some amount of anxiety. If you lose a loved one, of course you go through a period of stress, you go through a period of tension, of fear, of doubt, of questioning, all of that. All right, so that is more is tolerable, and if you can manage that well, you get the support that you need and so on, you will come through it quite well. We lose family members every day. Different ones of us would lose family members in terms of death, or we lose other things, or if there is some kind of disaster or somewhere around us that affects us, those things can frighten us. Or even sometimes you might go to the doctor and he or she says to you, well, I'm not sure what this is, but this could be A or B. And then right away you become tense and so on, because you know what this particular diagnosis could lead to. But your doctor says to you, well, I have to do some more tests. We have to see how things are going here and so on before we make a determination. But this appears to be, and so on. So you are to some extent feeling the stress of it and so on. So that's that's tolerable. You're going to wait, certainly, for all the tests to be done and for you to get a result as to what this problem is and so on. So you feel some amount of tension, some amount of fear, but you're going to overcome that if and when you get the final diagnosis and it says that you're okay. So that's like tolerable stress. All right? Now, in tolerable stress, once you get the support, you get the encouragement you need, you will overcome that stress, and you put it in the past after a while. Now there's a third type of stress, toxic stress. This one is the serious one that we're talking about. The person experiences strong, frequent, or prolonged adversity, and that can really interfere with your mental health. It can really cause you, to go off the deep end. Okay, so you have things like physical abuse that has been going on, and you're not saying it to anybody, you're not sharing this problem with anybody, and you're undergoing a lot of stress here. All right, prolonged adversity. All right, hardships in your life that you cannot seem to overcome, and you do not have the resources to help you overcome. You do not have the support of family and family members and friends and so on. And so this thing goes on for a period of time. In times of war, and I mean, thank God we haven't had that kind of situation in our country, but in times of war, when, so many things, so many of the regular things that happen around us are not happening because of war, because of unstable situations in the country. We cannot sleep well, we cannot eat well. Sometimes we can't even get stuff to eat because the regular things are not happening. There's not buying and selling going on. Commerce is brought to a standstill, things like that. So what happens here is that the stress becomes so great that it's sort of like something you live with. It's toxic. It's no longer good for your health. So you find that people generally have a problem, and they can no longer function the way they ought to. They cannot find a release somewhere, and they do not get support because everybody seems to be in the same problem. So we are running from place to place. We do not have a stable place to even live and to carry on our normal functions of eating and drinking and planting and reaping and things like that because of war. There's the resources, the services that are around us that should give us the support we need, they're no longer there, they're disrupted. So what happens is that we undergo prolonged stress, and that becomes toxic to us after a while. So those are some types of stress that we can look at, and we can think of ways that we can overcome. And we are thankful that our country is at peace. We still have electricity, even though sometimes we get blackouts. We still get water supply. We still have the regular services. And even though we are under some amount of curfew, we have some hours that we can go out and do the shopping we need and receive the kinds of support we need around us so we can carry on our lives in a sort of normal way, even if a few things have to be adjusted. So let us be careful of how we take care of our mental health. Let us mind and let us trust God that we can continue to, even though we have issues around us, that we can continue to deal with them, and we can continue to look to others for support, for encouragement, so that we can continue to live the way we live. Another area I wanted to touch on, and I didn't touch on much last week, was children and their mental health. Children. And it's so important that we look at children's mental health. We have children around us, and we did mention last week about children not going to school right now and having those issues with having them at home and keeping them occupied while they're at home and so on. So we want to deal a little bit with children's mental health, because it's so important that we provide the environment, the atmosphere where children's mental health can be maintained and even improved. Children are very easily susceptible to all what goes on around them. They sense things, they understand even better than we sometimes think that they do, and they can respond to things in different ways. How do we keep an environment where we can ensure the health, the mental health of our children? How do we behave, for example, when we are angry or upset or we receive bad news? Because remember, our children are there and they're seeing us, they're looking at us, and they're learning from us all the time. How do we respond to situations around us? All right, and what are we teaching them without actually teaching them? Because whatever they see, they learn. So how can we nurture their mental health? What should we be doing? As a parent, you play an important role in your child's mental health, very important role. You promote good mental health through the environment that you create in that home. Strong and healthy relationships with family and friends helps you. It helps to provide that kind of environment. How we relate to each other in the home, how we relate to people outside of the home, right? They are learning from that. They are seeing what we are doing. Let's take, for example, we receive bad news. Right? And sometimes these things are cultural. You heard of the death of some close relative and so on. How do you react when you get the news? All right? Sometimes you see what happens in homes. People scream and they throw themselves down. They shout, they bawl, whatever. So on. Children are watching. Is this how we are supposed to do when we get bad news? This is what they're thinking. Are we supposed to be shouting and screaming and throwing ourselves around and all that? And, inconsolably, you carrying on? So children are seeing these things. So what are they learning? That this is maybe what should happen. And if it happens 2 or 3 times, all right, it sort of remains with them. So you find that even when they receive the news before you, they start behaving the way they do, that you do. So right away, they have learned that behavior. So what happens is that we're teaching our children by the way we behave, by the way we react to situations, to news, to any kind of other situation or problem or difficulty. However it is that we react, they do, because they're learning what we are doing. All right, so we should be looking at how we behave generally and determining that this is how we ought to behave, because our children are learning from us. And what do we want them to learn? We want them to learn the right things. We want them to learn healthy behaviors, healthy responses. We don't want them to behave, in a way that will bring us any kind of embarrassment and all that. So we want to ensure that we create the right environment around them so that they can know how to respond to situations. Okay. What do you do for your children? What do you do for your children? You ensure there are strong, healthy relationships. You ensure there that even if there are conflicts within the home, you minimize the effect of those conflicts on the home environment, on the children who are around you. We know that there are issues between spouses, right? There might be problems between spouses. And when children sense this, even if you're not saying much, they sense when things are not all right between their parents. And they look to see what's happening. They're listening more carefully, more keenly. They're picking up little cues. And you probably are not even aware that they know that as much as they do. They're not saying anything, but of course they are affected by it. So we have to be very careful. And if sometimes they are bold enough to ask us questions, let's be truthful. Let's tell them this is what is happening, but we are dealing with it. And you must consciously make an effort to deal with that situation that arises between you and your husband or you and your wife, so that you do not create an atmosphere of tension for the children, for their sake. So we want to ensure that whatever we do, whatever we say to each other, does not give them that impression that things are going to go off very bad. You know, children understand, many times they understand, okay, separation and divorce. They understand those things. And they are fearful many times because they are wondering what is going to happen to us if anything happens to our parents, if they split up, if they're divorced. So children sometimes even are bold enough to ask the question, are you and daddy or are you and mommy going to separate? Are you going to get divorced? Why are you quarreling? Why are you not speaking with each other? All these things, children can ask those questions. Some children may not be bold enough, but they are thinking it. So the atmosphere we create is so important because we are interfering with their mental health. When they are not at ease in the home, when they know that something is wrong and they're not quite sure what it is and how they should deal with it. So here you are, you have a situation in the home, an environment that is tense, and the children are there and they are aware of what is happening. They're not quite sure why it's happening, but something is wrong. And they are not getting the answers to make them feel less uncomfortable. So their mental health is at stake here. Their mental health is affected. What do you do then? You have to ensure that you create an environment where even if there are disagreements or differences of opinion, your child still feels comfortable in the home. You should be there for your child if he or she has a problem, needs to turn to someone. That child must know that he can turn to you very quickly, very easily for help. Help your children to look at situations objectively and find solutions to those situations that arise. Find answers to questions that arise. Help your children to develop self-esteem. They must feel good about themselves. So help them to develop their own self-esteem. Show them love and acceptance. Let them know that they are loved. Let them know that no matter what, they have the support in you that they need. Praise them when they do well. Praise them when they do well. Recognize their efforts when they don't do as well as you thought they should do. It could be for some reason that they didn't do as well as they should have, but recognize the effort they made and encourage them to do better next time. Find out what their interests are, and what activities they're involved in, and get involved with them. We know many parents do this. This is not a problem in many homes. Parents get very involved in their children's lives, in their children's activities and so on. They give the support they need and so on. And we are glad for our teachers. If I can pause here to talk a little bit about our teachers, because our teachers play such an important role in the lives of our children. When we send them to school, we take 5, 6 or how many hours they are away from us. It is the teachers who are working with them. And when they come back home and they bring information and so on and they want to expand on that, well, we give the support. But our teachers are very important and critical to us. So therefore, we must be able to encourage our children, or encourage them to do the best they can. And when they go to school, be the kind of children who will be open to new learning, to new understanding, and and get the support. They can get the support from us that they need. So let us work with our children and their teachers so that they can turn out the way we would like to have them turn out. Give them opportunity to play, to run, to laugh, to talk, to interact with children, other children around them. We know at this time that we have COVID and we're talking about lockdown and all that, but our children need to exercise themselves. They need to be able to play and to laugh and to run and to do different things, activities. Children should not be cooped up in a house all the time. We should find a time for them to be out so they can be out in the open, in the fresh air, and let them play and run. Even if it's just a few of them, do what you need to do to help them, because this helps their mental health. It helps their mental capacity to develop further and give them healthy thoughts and interactions, God, so that they can interact with others. Their social life can be improved and so on. So, you know, children, their attention span is short. So even if we give them things to do, you might find them getting up, going to do other things and so on. So you have to think of many various tasks that you can get them involved in. If they are tired with doing this, they can do something else, or whatever it is they want to do. Keep them engaged in something or the other so that they can continue to grow, to learn. Their mental capacities must develop and so on. All this helps to keep them mentally healthy. So we want to just ensure and encourage you to do stuff with your children so that their mental health, you know, is maintained and improved. Their mental health, they can grow mentally as well as physically. Of course, they eat and drink and they run and play, and so their physical development is good. So, but you also want their mental development to come alongside that, and that must develop also. So we want children who are happy and healthy, both mentally and physically. Now, we mentioned a little earlier about if there is conflict in the home. And we said try to shield them from that as much as you can. They must not be witnessing fights in your home with you and your spouse, or with any other siblings and so on. Things that are getting out of hand. If you have a little, you know, interaction, a little physical tussle and all that, that's okay. But it mustn't be something that, you know, creates anger and hurt and any of those things, abuse and all those things. Those things must be kept from our children. Reinforce positive behaviors. Frequently reinforce positive behaviors. Remember this: children learn what they live. It is what they see around them that they learn, right? And they also recreate in their own lives. They learn what they live. They live with anger and frustration and conflict. This is what they're learning. If they live with love and acceptance, if they live with encouragement and praise, this is what they will grow with confidence and understanding and wisdom. So we have to make the choice. How do we create the environment where we want the best to come out of our children? And we have got to actively work on that kind of environment. We're not saying that everything is going to go perfect. Nothing goes perfect in any home at all times. But we know that you can create that environment so that even if things go off a little bit sometimes, you know that they will come back in line, and you know that your children will continue to learn and to grow. So this is what we want. We want to encourage. We're thinking also of abuse, child abuse. This can affect a child's mental health. Why should we abuse our children? Why should we cause them to suffer, to feel hurt and pain because of our actions? Let us watch out for our children. Let us watch over our children. Let us pray for our children. Let us cover them. Let our prayer of protection be upon them everywhere they go, every day of their lives, because they need it. We don't know. We are not there with them 24 hours a day. We don't know many times what is happening with them, but our prayers are going to help cover them. So help us. Let's help them to remember, and let's remember that children learn what they live. It's what you put in front of them. It's what you create around them. It's what they are going to learn from. And this is what they will reproduce in their own lives as they grow older. We want healthy families, healthy communities. So we want our children to be exposed to the best, to be exposed to the healthy kind of living and life that we will create in our own communities. They will leave the home, certainly. They will go out and see what is happening outside, certainly. But they will certainly make a comparison when they know that they've come out of stable, sound homes and they're seeing other things happening in the wider environment. They'll know that they have what they have to choose, because they've already got inside of them what you ensure that what was put in them. So we said children can be affected mentally by separation of parents, separation and divorce and things like that. They can also be affected mentally by things like death in the family, loss of a sibling, loss of a parent, and so on. They can be affected by physical illnesses, if they themselves become physically ill and disabled, or if any member of the family becomes sick and disabled. Those things can affect, and we must try to see how we can shield them or explain to them, because they will understand. If you tell them in simple terms what is happening, they will understand, and they will come around to accepting what is happening if there is illness and so on. But if we tell them nothing, they go off thinking all kinds of things. So let's look at and see what is happening in our children's lives, and let us try to communicate with them regularly, frequently, and let them know what is happening. Things like bullying in the school system or in the neighborhood and so on, that can affect a child's mental health. So we have to protect them from that kind of bullying and so on. We have to help them to overcome certain things that they see in their community, and they must not emulate those kinds of practices. And also look at their body image. A child may be heavy, may have a lot more weight than normal, and that child might feel a little bit sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes ashamed, because he or she cannot participate in some of the activities the way he wants to, because they may be too heavy, they may run too slowly, and they may be teased about it and so on. We must encourage those children. And of course, we will do the things we need to do if they are overweight, to see how we can help them with controlling the weight gain and so on. But at the same time, we must not let them feel like they're no good to themselves, that they're ugly looking, they're too fat, whatever. We must not let them condemn themselves. Let them be able to accept themselves and work on those areas where they can improve and see themselves. And this comes from our encouragement, what we say to them. Let us not be careless in our words, because we can hurt them with those words. And if we start with that in the home, then what happens when they go out in the community? It's the same thing, it's worse. So we want to encourage them. Okay, you're a little bit overweight and we're working on that. What? You're still loved and you're still loving, you're still lovely, you still look well, you are a child of God. Whatever it is we have to say to that child, to encourage them and to help them to accept themselves for who they are. They may be slower than other children in terms of their ability to pick up things, to learn things quickly and so on. We encourage them along the way. They may be better at some things than others. They may not be academically inclined like some other children or even their own siblings. But what do? Do we condemn them for that? No, we encourage them, because there are things that they will be doing that will not necessarily be what others are doing, but they can do very well and even better than others. So we have to look at their strengths. We have to look and see what gifts they have and see how we can develop those gifts. So that helps a child's mental health. That child knows he's loved. That child knows we understand him and we know how to take care of him. He knows that he's part of the family. He's embraced. He's loved like everyone else, and he feels more comfortable. His mental health is maintained and improved if he knows he's accepted. Good. So we've talked about, and we cannot say everything about all these different issues that we are raising, but there's so much out there that we can learn from. So we don't want to, you to think that, well, we haven't touched on this or that. We want to ensure that you know some of the basic things. And as you do some reading yourselves, you'll be able to pick up some more of this, because we cannot cover it all in these sessions that we're doing. So we were dealing with coping. And those are some ways that we cope with issues within the home. But for ourselves, what about our own coping? What is coping in the first place? It is investing your own effort to solve personal and interpersonal problems in order to minimize or tolerate stress or conflict. This is coping. All right, something happens, what do we do? How do we handle it? All right, it's a kind of adaptive strategy that we use to reduce maybe stress in our own lives and so on. So we cope with situations because they come to us and they are not acceptable situations. They are not comfortable with us. So we want to find ways that we can cope with that situation that comes to us. So a problem arises and we think of, what can we do? What can we do? How do we approach a situation where things are tough and we're not getting the kind of support we think we should get? Who do we turn to? How do we handle this situation? First, keep a positive attitude. Keep a positive attitude. Keep positive. Adopt a positive attitude and maintain that throughout. Stay connected to people around you. Don't cut yourself off from others because you have a problem. When you have a problem, you need people even more. So stay connected to family members. Stay connected to friends. Depending on how severe the problem might be, stay connected to people who can support you through this period that you're going. Spiritual leaders, spiritual friends and family, any kind of support that you can get, keep connected to these people. Communicate your feelings. Don't keep your emotions bottled up. Let somebody know. I'm sure there are trusted friends and family you can share a problem with, even if it might be something that you don't want everybody to know about, everybody to hear about. There must be somebody you can trust, that you can share and intimate a conversation with, a problem that arises in your life. So don't keep your feelings inside of you and just pull yourself away from others. Share it with somebody. Share it with somebody. There must be something. The very fact that you can share a problem with someone helps you because it relieves you, it lifts some of the burden after you would have shared it. So at least somebody else knows what I'm going through, somebody else understands what I'm going through, and they may be able to help you in some way, share something with some word of encouragement, or lead you to someone who can help you in some way to relieve this problem. So communicate your feelings to someone else. Don't keep it inside of you alone and think you can work it through by yourself. So do that. Do not cut off yourself from family. Do not cut off yourself from friends. People are there to support us. I said in an earlier broadcast, God set us in families. And it's for a reason. It's because that He knows family is what helps us. Through the good times and bad, family is what helps us. Sometimes we say, well, this and that and the other. But sometimes if they don't come alongside us, we can't make it. Their very presence. And that's why, I like village life. Because even though some people might be a little bit too inquisitive and they might want to know too much about you, village life, if you grew up in a village, you understand that the neighbor over there knows about you, the one across the street knows about you, the one in the back alley knows about you, and they would say, oh, so and so happened, let us help, let us go across there. Their very presence coming to you makes a lot of difference because you know that you're not in this thing alone. They're sharing this problem with you. They may not have physical resources to give you, to support you, but they're sharing the problem by their very presence there. They're saying that we are interested, we are concerned, and we want to see what we can do to help. So let's not cut ourselves off from others. Let us reach out to others. Let us, as a family, as an individual for that matter, reach across to the other person. As a family, come together and support each other. And as a neighborhood, whatever is happening, it might be something that's happening in the neighborhood, something that is affecting our health and wellness and all that. How do we come together and how do we, share this issue so that we can find solutions and implement those solutions to make things better for ourselves? So we can do those things. In addition to that, we're looking at coping. Do not neglect yourself. Do not neglect yourself. You need to eat and still, so you still must find a way to eat healthy, all right? Continue to take care of yourself. Continue to groom yourself. It might not be easy. You might want to feel like giving up, but we want to encourage you. Keep doing the things you did before so that you can continue to appear like you appeared before. And you need to ensure that you invest time in looking after yourself, ensuring that you rest adequately. Those things are important, and it also helps your mental health. It's so apart from, engaging and eating and different things and so on, the mere fact that you're looking after yourself helps your mental health. So help yourself by doing the things you need to do to contribute to your physical health, and you contribute to your mental health. So eat. You might probably lose, your appetite to some extent because of the worry and the tension that you feel and so on. But still, we want to encourage you at least to eat something. Eat at different times, at meal times and so on. Eat healthy too. Exercise regularly. Things might be happening that are causing you to not want to do this or that, but try to see how you can exercise. These things are happening. They're not there to stay. They're going to pass. At some point in time, things are going to be less tense, and you're going to start to feel a little better after a while. It's only at the initial stage that when you get news, bad news, and things happen to us, and we hurt and so on, we do this. But as time passes, the pain is less, and we're able to continue living the way we ought to live. So continue to look after yourself. Eat healthy, rest, exercise, go for a walk, think right thoughts. If it is that you need to pray, pray. To pray, meditate on the word of God, give yourself encouragement. Remember, David encouraged himself in the Lord when he was beset behind and before by enemies. When he was running from Saul, he was in a strait. But what did he do? He encouraged himself in the Lord. He continued to talk to God, to call upon the name of the Lord. We can call upon God. We can call upon family. We can call upon friends. We can call upon neighbors. We get help when we seek help. So we do all those things so that we can continue to keep our mental health intact. Manage your time. Manage your time. You don't have to, because something has happened, you don't have to be, all this is happening to me, I don't know where to turn, what to do. Manage what you're doing. You have stuff to do still, keep doing the things you're doing. Don't take on everything as if, you alone can do everything. Just take things one at a time. Just take your time in doing what you have to do. Encourage yourself and keep doing what you have to do. So you are continuing to look after your mental health in that way. Good. If you have a chronic disease, a chronic illness, if you have diabetes, or if you have high blood pressure, or any of those things, ensure that you still see your doctor, take your medications, keep your appointments with your doctor as you did before. Do not neglect yourself. That's what we were saying a little earlier. Take care of yourself. So the things you did before, please try to keep doing them. You know that you have to see the doctor. You have to go and see the doctor. You go and see the doctor. You have to collect some other medications for this particular condition that you have. Ensure that you get those medications and you continue to take them. All right. So we say to you, continue to do the things you did before. Do not throw yourself down and say, I give up. You cannot give up. You have to keep going. Do some other things that you like to do. What do you like? Gardening? Do you like to plant flowers? Plant some flowers. Or if you have a flower garden that you are taking care of, go spend some time in that garden. Talk with your plants like you did before. Do the things that you did earlier. So do some gardening or some kind of work that you did before. That helps you with your mental health. It helps you to feel good about yourself and about the things around you. The flowers are still growing, they're still blooming. So what happens is that you're ensuring that you benefit from their presence there because they bring you joy and so on. So you're benefiting from being there among them. Okay. Change your environment if you need to. Do something you like to do. All right, if you feel depressed in the house, come outside, If you feel that you need to hear some music, play some music. Whatever it is. If you feel you need to watch a movie, watch a movie. But do the things that will make you feel some joy in your life. You should not be taking on everything in such a way that you can do nothing. You immobilize yourself because of your worry and your tension and your fear. You should not be doing that. Shed the fear and begin to do stuff. Even if you don't feel like doing it, go ahead and do it. Do some things like practicing breathing exercises. Take some deep breaths. You wake in the morning and you start feeling the way you felt yesterday. Take some deep breaths and breathe out some of the toxic things. Breathe out and breathe in some fresh air from the atmosphere. Take some deep breaths. Do some other things that you probably had been saying you wanted to do for a long time, but you didn't do. You didn't have the time to do. Do some other stuff. Set limits. All right? If people are asking you to do things, even though you have issues and so on, if you cannot do those things, decline graciously. Say, I'm sorry, I won't be able to do this or that or the other. So you can still do those things because you're not taking on other people's issues when you have your own and you're not dealing well enough with them. So what you can do is decline. Say to them, I'm sorry, I can't do it right now, maybe at a later date and so on. You don't have to offend, but you can say what you need to say in quite a nice way. Employ in our own lives to cope with stresses that come our way. We are not people who will want to take action before we think things through. We will want to ensure that whatever it is that we employ, whatever solutions that we want to engage to combat a problem or a difficulty, it must work. So we want to be able to think things through properly. All right, let us not be too hasty in implementing solutions. Let us think through the repercussions of those solutions that we might implement and ensure that the best outcomes are likely to happen. We are not able to see what the outcome is at the beginning, but based on whatever methods we employ, we're likely to ensure that those methods will work. So what we want to do is if we have a variety of solutions, we might want to look at them and choose which might be the most appropriate one to employ when we have to find a way out of a situation that we find ourselves in. Some time ago, it was quite a while because I was working in the interior at the time, and there was a call during the night. It was after midnight, and a vehicle came to the hostel where we stayed and asked for help. The young man said to us that his wife had delivered a baby at home and she had not delivered after birth. What reason he had for not bringing her to hospital, we don't know. But he chose to leave where he was, to come to the hospital where we were, and that was quite a few miles away, and to get somebody to leave here, leave the hospital, the hostel, to go with him to the home where he was staying. It wasn't something that we wanted to do readily because we weren't sure where we were going. We didn't even know him, and he came with a vehicle that didn't even look like it could go too far. However, we had to make a decision, and I was the most senior nurse there at the time, and I couldn't get any of my nurses to agree to go. I was concerned because the nurses, I understood their situation. I understood why they took the position they took. But I also had a worry, a fear about the patient herself and what was happening to her. And I didn't want to have to tell the gentleman, go back and bring your wife, because that would take up even more time. I don't know what state she was in. So, you know, I was worrying. I was worrying about this matter. And within maybe a half an hour or so, I had to make up my mind to go myself with the gentleman and another person who came with him. It was a rough ride. And it took us through quite a bit of bushy areas, uninhabited and all that, to where this place was. And in fact, I think I didn't quite appreciate mental health at the time. But all the way I am worrying whether I was being kidnapped. And that was a grave concern of mine, because I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who these people were. All I knew is that I was going with them, and I was going to help them or help their wife. My nurses, the only good thing I thought about this whole thing was that the nurses knew where I was going, and they made note of who the people were who came to see me, to take me, and they made note of the vehicle that took me. So if anything should happen, at least they'd be able to say that much. So I went. And I think it took us about an hour and a half to get to the place. And of a truth, the lady she had delivered the baby, and the placenta had not been delivered. I was thankful that she was not bleeding actively, or else I might not have found her alive. And I was able to take care of her, do what was necessary, get the placenta delivered, control the bleeding, and then I sat down to talk with them. Now, I'm sharing this experience because when I think of mental health and the worry I put myself through to get there because of the fact that I didn't know where I was going, and then the worry I put the nurses through when I left to go, and they didn't know where I was going either. I'm thinking then, well, our mental health. And what was worse was that after I delivered the baby, it was getting light then. It was getting almost to daybreak. After I delivered, I'd done what I had to do, and she was okay. The young men, because of their gratitude, they told me to wait a while, sit with them, have something to eat, and then they wanted to take me around their farm. They had a cattle ranch, and they had some other farming going on, livestock and crops and so on. And I decided that, well, look, since I'm here, it's so far away anyway, I might as well make use of the time I'm going to be there. And so I stayed on and with them, and I went around. I saw the farm, I saw their cattle and all, the horses, everything. And it took some time. And gradually, we completed that tour, and I went back. They took me back to the hospital. When I got back to the hospital, it was way into the day. It was almost nearly midday. And I did not realize, I could not appreciate at the time what I put the nurses through. So I arrived back quite late in the morning at the hostel. I didn't even remember that we had some kind of breakdown on the way back. That also delayed me. So when we arrived back, it was quite late. Only to discover that the nurses were so worried. And they actually said it to me. I put them through a lot of mental strain because they couldn't figure out why I had stayed so long and what had happened. So they made a decision that they'd report it to the police. So they had left where we were staying at the hostel, and they had gone across to the police station to report that I had gone to help a pregnant woman who was delivered and whose husband came to get help because she was bleeding. And I had not returned, and it was several hours since I left, and therefore they couldn't figure out what had happened, and they thought they should make a report. You know, I realized at that point that some things we take for granted. There was no way I could communicate with them while I was there, while I was out, that all was well and so on. And therefore, I left them to think their own thoughts. And this happens so often with people that sometimes we neglect to consider how others feel about situations. Even though they were not in it themselves, but they are concerned that somebody else is in that situation, and how others feel about it, and what their reaction would be. And because we neglect to consider all those things, we put them through additional strain. And I really thought at that time that I was a bit selfish in not coming back more quickly and ensuring that they were at ease. I didn't think of it, and I've learned from that situation that we have to consider others. And even as we talk about mental health, let's look at how we treat others. Let's look at what we do, what we put others through when we neglect to do certain things, when we are careless about certain things, when we know that they would be concerned about us, but you know, it sort of doesn't occur to us that we should do something about it. We should take some kind of action and ensure that they are not put under undue strain or undue tension. And I want to say this, you know, to remind us that we are our brother's keepers, and if they felt concern for me, they are my keepers, right? And I am their keepers just the same way. And if they felt that kind of concern, that they were watching and waiting for me to get back, and I could take my time and have fun and all that on the way, not considering that they'd be worried, knowing how I left, and cause them to now have to take another step in a direction, you know, to at least provide for some amount of safety for me. I was selfish in that sense, and I learned from that. I want to say in the same way that even as we ourselves would maybe go through mental strain and so on, and worry and fear and doubt and tension and whatever, we must think of others too, because they are put under strain too, because we are under that kind of strain, and they are concerned for our well-being. We must think of them so that if at any point in time that kind of mental fatigue or that tension that we feel is eased, we must find a way to ease their tension also, because they may very well be feeling that we are still in that position and they are worried about us. It could be any situation. We may have lost something, or somebody might have been reported missing, but then we got news that the person is well and all that. But do we tell the others about it? Do we tell those who we had told earlier that something happened and they were worrying themselves? Do we let them know quickly that, okay, everything is all right? All right, we come upon some kind of misfortune, or at least something appears to be misfortune. What do? We share our burden with others, and they help carry it. But in some way or the other, we get some kind of relief, and then we do not communicate that to them, that they should be sharing in that kind of relief. They should be rejoicing now that things are all right, that things are better, and so on. So let us not be selfish. Even as we consider our own mental health, consider the mental health of others. What are they feeling when we're feeling the way we do, and when we're sharing with them that this is what is happening to us? How are we communicating with them to let them know that things are better? All right, that we are no longer under this kind of mental fatigue and all that, so that they themselves can rejoice with us. This is something that sometimes we are careless about, that we do not consider very much. But even as I recall that incident, that situation there, I want to appeal to us that whatever it is that we might be going through, whatever it is that we may have faced in our daily walk and so on, we must, as we communicate with others, as we share with others our burden, let us also share with them the things that are happening that are positive, the things that are bringing release to the tension that we feel and all of that, and so that they can share it themselves, so that they can feel a little better about the whole situation. It might be that somebody is praying for us for some reason or the other, some condition that we have that we've asked for prayers for. And now that we've got the good news that this thing, whatever it was that we thought was the problem, is no longer the problem. What have we done? Have we said to them that, look, we've got a good diagnosis. Look, we've heard that this thing is not so. It has been proven negative. And now we can rejoice and so on. You can rejoice with me. Instead of having them worry and continuing to pray and asking God and pulling down strongholds and all the other things, we now can say, let's rejoice because things are better now. Things are all right. And so everything in our lives, every situation that we face, every challenge that seems to want to overwhelm us, wherever it is that we are able to get success, wherever it is that we are able to overcome, let us in the same vein ask our family, rejoice with us, tell our friends, we have been able to overcome this situation and so on, so that we ourselves, they can rejoice with us. It may not sound like anything so big, but it is so important that we include them when things are good, and when things are bad, and when things are good, that we involve them, so that not only when things are bad, we let everybody know, but when things are good, we keep it to ourselves. Our mental health is improved when we get success in any venture that we get into that seem to be going down the wrong way. When we find that we are able to overcome whatever difficulty there was, and we feel better about ourselves and so on, about how things worked out, let us remember those who have helped us, those who have supported us, those who have prayed for us, those who have encouraged us. Let us remember them, and let them share in our successes. Let them share in our joys. Let them share in our celebration, so that together we know that we are doing the right thing. We are communicating with each other, and we are enjoying the same results from whatever intervention there was. Having said all that, there's so much more that we can talk about mental health, so much more. And there's so many experiences that we can share. But I'm sure that you have your own experiences along the way. And therefore, having said these few words, let us engage some of these coping mechanisms that we have mentioned, and let us see how better we can improve our mental health, how we can relate to others in a better way, and how we can help others to improve their mental health by the way we behave. I want to thank you for the time we've spent. I think that at some point in the future, we might again talk some more about mental health, but I think we'll stop here for now.
Thank you for viewing our Bible study tonight. Thank you for our technical team. They are unbelievable young men and women working to ensure we can bring these programs to you. These millennials, they are teaching us baby boomers a whole lot. And we pray and we appreciate your involvement, your faithfulness in discharging your responsibilities to the church, your commitment to the Lord. And we encourage you not only to show up on Wednesday nights, but on Friday evenings when we have our prayer meeting. It's a fantastic testimony we had of what happened last Friday. I'm going to allow them, not going to steal their thunder. I'm going to allow them to testify about it. And Sunday morning, we will be in the house of the Lord again, virtually. And we want to encourage you, only because of the recording. I am wearing my face mask, and I just have it here because they want me to appear on camera without it. But I put it on once I get out of the house. I put it on, and I get the business done that I have to do. When I'm meeting folk, I get the business done. I want to encourage you, because of what's happening in our nation, what's happening in the world. Wear your face mask. Once you're out in the public, practice social distancing, please. And let us encourage our colleagues to do the same. The Lord willing, we will see you next week when we should commence the book of Zechariah. God bless you. And remember, pray for Guyana. Amen.
Worship you, Lord, we worship you. We worship you, Lord. Come on, help me sing. There is only one name. Come on, sing it out. There is only one name. The power to save. Hey. Power to save. Come on, sing it out again. There is only one name. There is only one name. Come on, lift up your voices.